Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and it is time for me to do a disassembly and a little bit of maintenance on this guy. This is my Quietcarry Waypoint, and if you have not seen me talk about this knife, then there is a lot about this knife. I love this knife. It is one of my favorites. Just yesterday I filmed my top 10 in my collection video. It is absolutely in the top 10, and it's one of my favorite knives of 2020, and there's just a lot of great things about this knife. But I have used and carried this knife like crazy, and I have made a point for a while that anytime that this knife is in my pocket, I have gone ahead, if I have seen a body of water or even a puddle, I have gotten it wet intentionally, because the crowning features of this knife are the materials used to make it. It's Vanex Super Clean Steel, which is as corrosion resistant basically as steels come. Titanium handle scales, corrosion resistant. Liner lock is made of LC200N, corrosion resistant. The hardware is touted as being corrosion resistant. So I have just been purposely getting it wet all the time, putting it back in my pocket wet, and seeing what happens. So far, no damage that I can tell whatsoever. I do have one snail trail on the handle scale. I carry and use this knife. It is a user for me. Today I'm sending it to a buddy to check out, and so as I was getting ready to put it in the box, I just noticed the action isn't quite what it was when I got it. It's a little stiffer, and I think what has happened is because some of the times that I've gotten it wet, it's been literally salt water. There's probably just like some mineral deposit in the action. I don't think it's going to be rust, but we're going to bust it apart, and we're going to see what we're working with in here and just kind of clean it out, put some KPL in there, and see what happens. I have Loctited this pivot with some blue Loctite. I grabbed my bottle of that. It's right out of reach, but I'll grab that when I'm putting it back together. So hopefully getting the pivot undone shouldn't be too big of a deal. It was just blue Loctite, so I imagine we'll be fine. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and take this guy apart. So I don't think I'll need to take the clip off. I'm not going to do that because I don't need to. I'm just going to get it broken down to the point where I can go ahead and clean it out. But hopefully this is a relatively straightforward disassembly. You can see both of the screws that are keeping this knife together are just on one side in terms of access to them. So on this side it's just kind of clean show side hardware. Let's go ahead, and I think they're both T8s. Yeah, this one's a T8. It's cool hardware, actually. Come on. Did I not get it all the way? There we go. So we have our T8 body screw, if you will, and then this is the one that I've Loctited, so we'll see how it goes. Pulling it apart. Oh, that's not bad at all. Make sure I'm not totally just free spinning on this side. Just literally pressing with my thumb over here. Give myself kind of counter pressure. And we are out on this side. So that's my show side pivot screw. And then this side. Yeah, there we go. It's coming right apart. Alright, let's see what we have inside of here. So, yeah, look at that. There is like some KPL and stuff in there because I have reapplied some KPL when I noticed it was a little bit gritty, but that didn't totally fix it, which is what illustrated to me that it probably needed an actual proper takedown. You can see there's like just greenish grime in there. It's not corrosion, but it's ugly, nasty stuff, which is why this has gotten stiff, if I had to guess. Everything looks fine back here. I'll pull the back spacer out. Yeah, everything is fine back here. No corrosion anywhere that I can see thus far. Let's see how the liner side looks. Blade. Yeah, look at all that nastiness. Okay, so I do have the tiniest bit of corrosion right around the detent ball. I'm not sure. Yeah, here there's like literally some sand, but this liner lock bar is LC200N, and I do see just a little bit, maybe like some hints of some little bit of spots, like tiny rust spotting right around here. But around the detent ball is going to be where there's a little bit of actual physical rust that I can see. Let's go ahead and push the pivot out. Around here, I don't think that's rust. I think it's just kind of greenish stuff like I'm seeing on the washers. It's like muck more than it is rust. So there's washer. Yeah, that wipes right off. That's not rust. That's just nastiness from the ocean. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and grab some Q-tips real fast. You can see it's even marked LC200N there on the liner lock bar. So yeah, let me go ahead and get some Q-tips and a little bit of solvent real fast, and then I'll just kind of wipe that down pretty good, make sure it's dry, and I'll wipe down around here as well where the detent ball is sitting in, because I don't think this is the Vanex rusting. Yeah, it's definitely not, because it's wiping right off of there, but right where the detent ball is setting in, you can see a little bit of corrosion as well. I wonder if the corrosion is the LC200N or if it's that detent ball, but I think it's a ceramic detent ball, and it looks like it to me. So I don't think ceramic detent balls should rust. That's not something I'm aware of. Anyway, I'll be right back with some Q-tips and some solvent, and we can keep this moving. All right, I grabbed the Loctite, which was just out of reach. I got a couple of Q-tips, and then this is just shooter lube that I have around. It's a solvent that I use for gun cleaning. It's not super hardcore solvent, and it's pretty odorless, and this isn't necessarily a plug for that product, but it's just what I had sitting around. So let's get this out of my way. I guess I really only need that T8, don't I? Toss those really out of the way. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to just kind of get some solvent on the tip of this, and then I'm going to wipe down that spot where I see the little bit of corrosion. Come on. This bottle's being fussy, isn't it? Does it have a lock on it? It does. Is it unlocked? I don't know what's happening. I got enough on there, I think. Get it off my fingertips. Alright, so let's... Oh yeah, it's coming right off. So it's not like deep corrosion. It's not getting really into there. It's just kind of right at that contact point that I'm seeing any at all. Wipe that down. I'm going to get all of the interfaces as well, where everything's moving and contacting. Yeah, look at that, wiping right off. In fact, why don't I just... I need this to work if that's going to happen. What is going on here? It's got this like lock thing on it. I don't know if that's what's causing my problem. Why don't you want to work? Alright. Skip the solvent because it's not working. There's a little bit on the rag. We're just gonna get in there real good. Yeah, look at all that schmutz that's in there. It's got more of a greenish hue than a yellowish, like rusty hue, so I'm not worried about it actually being the Vanex itself rusting. So that's cleaned off pretty well. Let's get the pivot cleaned off pretty well. Alright, that is clean. Make sure we get the other side of the pivot screw just to be safe. And then we're going to clean these washers up good too. That is where the magic happens for the action. So if we put them back in grimy, then the action will still be grimy. So there's that one. And here is this one. That should be much better. Let's go ahead now. Just give this a little wipe as well. Make sure I'm getting everything. Looks like we've got some gunk kind of down in here too. So I'm going to go ahead and see. Yeah, that's helping a lot. Let's check this side over here. And then I've got to wipe this one down still. Yeah, that's that's a lot of just stuff in there that's making it less fun to actuate and disengage. So now I think we're pretty well cleared out. Yeah, I don't see anything else that could present an issue. Go ahead and start getting this guy back together, I suppose. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to start with the lock side. I usually have a better time if I start with the lock side on knives for some reason. So let's go ahead and lock side was the one that had this pivot screw. Great. Before I plop a washer on there, I put a tiny dab of KPL. Really don't need much on there, but just a hair. And make sure this truly is all cleaned off and I'm satisfied with it. Looks good to me. And let's go plop that right down there. Now we're gonna repeat, put a little KPL on this surface. This is definitely more KPL than you really need on a knife, but I'd rather put a little extra instead of not enough. So the stop pin is set into the blade here, so we're just going to make sure that that goes kind of into the track, and I'm just going to go ahead and literally like set it kind of lock engaged. I find that that makes it easiest for me personally when I do that. Alright, now we're going to need another little dab here. A little dab there. Again, that's more than I really need, but I'd rather have more than not enough. Excellent. So that is set down where it's going to go. Put a tiny dab on it here. And now, what I need to do is set this in position and see if I can get lucky and slide this right on into there. Ooh, that worked well. Alright. Now this side of the pivot, the screw is keyed. So what I want to do is set this side in, press it all the way down, I think, and then obviously I'm going to have to screw from the other side because this side doesn't even have access for a bit, but I want to make sure I get this correctly positioned here. I may have to start screwing it to get that to settle. Let's give it a couple of turns. Oh, I felt it kind of pop into place a little better over there. You know what, I'm going to get it started enough to hold it together, and then I forgot the Loctite, so let me get it held together there. I'm going to put this back body screw in, and then we're going to pull that pivot screw back out from this kind of screw side, add a little dab of Loctite on there to make sure that it is secure. And sweet, so body screw is in back here. I'll tighten that down all the way in a moment, but let's pull this sucker out. Okay, so that's proving to be difficult this way. Maybe I'll just, it's the same screw. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on here, or I could even, I might want to try to just dab it down into there. That seems riskier though. Let's put it on here. So, not a ton, just a dab, enough to keep everything where it ought to be. There we go. That is settled. Now once I get this tightened down and everything centered, I'll test the action once or twice to make sure it's right, and then I'm going to make sure I leave it alone so that Loctite has the time to settle in. Okay, there is centered. Oh yeah. Okay, and we're back to being nice and smooth again. So I'm going to leave it exactly like that, because the Loctite, I believe you're supposed to let it sit for like 24 hours. That's usually kind of an issue for me because I want to play with the knife right after I get it set back up. But since I am sending this to my buddy Lefty EDC, I'm just going to go ahead and put it into the box, and by the time it gets to him, it should be settled in and should be right. So if not, he'll have to do a little tinkering on his end, but he's a friend and I trust him, so should be fine. Now it should be a better experience for him to check out this knife. It should be more true to how the knife should function. So I'm glad that I cleaned that out. There was a good amount of stuff in there, and interesting to see that little bit of corrosion on the lock bar. I didn't think I was going to find literally any in there. Although, to be totally fair, I have gotten this knife wet so many times in a variety of different water sources. So it's been in fountains, it's been in literal puddles, it's been in rivers and streams, it's been in pools, it's been in the ocean, it's been in my sink a bunch of times. It's been just, I've gotten it wet so many times. So I imagine what probably did it in was the salt water. Maybe the salt water sitting right around that, like kind of pooling up around the detent. I have to imagine that's probably it. But it is also interesting that the Vanex doesn't appear to have rusted at all whatsoever, and the LC200N did rust a little bit, because a lot of people, they keep making the claim that LC200N is the greatest thing to ever happen to stainlessness, and I always make the argument that Vanex is as stainless and has better edge retention, but apparently, according to this very unscientific approach, the LC200N rusted first, so Vanex is even more stainless, maybe. Again, not a scientist. This is just me discovering this on video with you because I think it's interesting. Typically I wouldn't even film a little tune-up like this, but maybe you guys find it advantageous to see me take it apart and put it back together. I don't know. This is a knife I get questions about all the time as well, and people always want to know how it's holding up, so there's your report. We spotted a little rust, but it wasn't major, and it wasn't on the blade. So there you have it. Thank you guys for watching with me, and I'll see you on the next one.